You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Scottish Football Zone. I hope everyone has had a lovely weekend. We bring a bit of breaking news that recently just came to my attention. It looks like widely reported that Jimmy Killeen is going to be sacked. Obviously, after the game yesterday, I expected to come on the show and maybe speak about a different managerial starting, but it does look like Jimmy Killeen is going to be leaving the Aberdeen post. Before we get into that and all the weekend's games, I'll introduce my co-host, shall I say, Ethan Barlow. Ethan, how you doing?
Yeah, good. A very entertaining weekend of football again. Obviously, two away derby wins, one probably more expected than the other, but a lot of fallout, as you said, with Wilfred Nancy, obviously, and Jimmy Tillene, as we've learned. And I could maybe see that one coming. I actually probably seen that coming more likely than Wilfred Nancy being removed. But yeah, we'll obviously get on to all of that. And I think the performance and result from Aberdeen yesterday just wasn't good enough performance, especially they were second best pretty much right throughout the game, and I'm sure the Aberdeen fans, a lot of them would have liked to see Jimmy Tillene go, despite what he's obviously done with the Scottish Cup win and at the end of last season. How's yourself, Robbie?
Aye, not bad. Disappointing result for St Mirren yesterday away at Fir Park. Expected, to be honest with you, and we'll obviously get into talk about that. But if I want to touch on some more positive stuff, it feels like the last couple of weeks, we've been speaking about Nancy, his really bad turn of form at Celtic. We've been speaking about the negatives a lot, but Hamilton's been saved. The last we heard, that was looking really worrying for them, but a statement came out earlier today that they've been saved by Molly Sports Management Group, and they've appointed Rob Edwards, Neil Blankstone and Alan Curry to the board. Pretty good news for Hamilton fans in the club.
Yeah, exactly. I think probably good news for Scottish football fans as a whole, because Hamilton have became part of the furniture, certainly in the recent years, obviously being in the Premiership for some of them, and then it's been really sort of devastating and sad to see what's happened to them. It's happened to a few clubs, but probably no worse for any other club than it has for Hamilton recently, with the relegations, the points deductions, and people questioning whether Hamilton were going to be a football club going forward. And it looks like maybe now, hopefully, they can gain a little bit more stability and build the club up again and be a team for the people of Hamilton that supported them to continue supporting them, because that's something you never like to see a football club going under, especially a one that's, as I said, part of the Scottish football furniture.
Aye, Hamilton, of course, had their game postponed against East Fife. I think there was a lot of games in the lower leagues of Scotland postponed yesterday. I think there was only 2 in League One that went ahead. So, a lot of obviously the frosty weather catching up with teams now. It seems to have getting colder as we've left December, actually, which is wild. But even, I suppose it's only right we need to start at Celtic Park. It was Celtic 1, Rangers 3. Celtic looked like they were coasting in the first half. A goal for Yang in the 20th minute gave Celtic a lead. A pretty dominant first half, you'd say. And then Rangers make some tactical tweaks after Danny Rowe. And Ethan, I'll fling it over to you to sort of sum up the match. I know you were there. Rowe made the tactical changes, and Nancy just never really adapted to it. And at that point on, it always looked like it was going to be a Rangers win.
Yeah, exactly that. As soon as the Rangers even got their equaliser, it probably, maybe not that, maybe that's a bit harsh, but their second goal certainly, they didn't look a way back for Celtic. And it's the same thing we've continued to see from this Celtic team under Wilfred Nancy. Obviously, 6 defeats from 8 is unprecedented times for the football club and the fans, as Luke McCowan, I think, touched on in the comments that were released earlier, which I'm sure most of the people watching have seen. And yeah, not very encouraging, I think, for Celtic fans. And a lot of what he said is what a lot of people are thinking. I think he said something along the lines of, we carried out the game plan well in the first half, and they changed at half time, and we didn't change or react to their change. And that's what we've seen in multiple games now. Credit to Danny Rowe, because no matter how poor you can say Celtic were and how many individual errors there was for the 3 goals, he still made a change and ultimately brought his team a massive win, and really gives Rangers even more momentum now to strive past Celtic. And ultimately the bigger fish to fry is Hearts at the moment, because they're obviously 6 points clear. But yeah, Wilfred Nancy didn't react, and you've seen this countless times. It happened in the opening game against Hearts. Derek McInnes sort of sussed out what he was trying to do early when Celtic started the game well, and Hearts obviously going to win. Happened with Stephen Robinson in the League Cup final. Celtic had a really good period. Obviously, St Mirren got the goal early on from the corner, but Celtic got the equaliser and looked like they were going up the gears. Then Stephen Robinson obviously realised what Wilfred Nancy was trying to do, and the rest is history there. Dundee United the same. Jim Goodwin flipped the switch at half-time. He made a change as well, if I remember correctly. And I'm sure there's more examples. They're just the ones that come to mind. Motherwell, I think, in fairness to Jens Berfalasco and the Motherwell team, they just blew Celtic away from minute 0 to 90, which is credit to probably how good Motherwell are at the minute and how good of a manager Jens Berfalasco is. One of the best in the league easily, if not at the moment the best in the league, as a few Motherwell fans would probably suggest. So yeah, I think Wilfred Nancy is it's going to be, I think it's almost impossible for him to turn it around now, but I think Luke McCowan said it, and I think a lot of the Celtic fans are regrettably accepting the fact that the club have ultimately backed themselves into a corner and they've made it difficult to bring someone else in because they need to bring players in January. The squad isn't good enough to go and win that league. And yeah, I don't know if any other manager can come in and change that. So, and obviously you've got to compensate Wilfred Nancy as well if you were to get rid of him. So they put themselves in a really difficult situation. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this goes on. Will he make it to the game against Dundee United, where it'll be interesting to see a team play against Celtic who have already played against them, and how that'll go, how Jim Goodwin will set up his team and stuff like that. So yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, before we sort of get into Luke McCowan's comments, I just want to ask you about the way you felt getting into the stadium. I've heard from a few Celtic fans, and a lot of them described it as no having a derby feeling, no having a big game feeling. It almost felt a weird feeling. Did you feel that going to the stadium?
I wouldn't say it didn't feel like a derby feeling, but I get what they're saying. It was a flat atmosphere, and I think it was always going to be like that. What would it have been? 5 defeats in 7. A lot of Celtic fans weren't confident. I had a weird feeling that Celtic might win the match. I don't know why. Maybe the first half was sort of vindicated that, because as you said, Celtic were dominant in the first half, played the better of the two teams after a sticky sort of, I don't know, 10 minutes. Both teams were settling into the game, but Celtic had some really good moments in the first half. They had good chances. They probably should have been more than one ahead, but it's been the same old story for Celtic this season, not taking their chances, especially under Wilfred Nancy. And then when other teams make switches, Celtic can't adjust to it and put under pressure. They really struggle, and that's exactly what Rangers done. They didn't do anything special in the second half. I didn't think Rangers were excellent by any means. They just turned up the intensity a little bit, because I thought in the first half it was very similar to the League Cup final. Rangers sat off the game, allowed Celtic to pretty much dictate the pace as at their own will. And then Danny Rowe, like he did in the League Cup final, made a positive sort of switch, even though Taylor Asgard, unfortunately for him, involved in both of them. Obviously a red card in the League Cup semi this time. I think he got a yellow in the first half. And yeah, he wasn't great in the first half, so you could see why he made that switch. And I don't think Mohamed Diamandi directly really made a great impact, but Danny Rowe being a bit more positive changed the game for Rangers, and you've seen that with the quick goals that they get with Yusuf Jamiti, and then Mikey Moore finishes it off with aided by some poor goalkeeping again, I'll say, by Kasper Schmeichel, along with some awful defending. And you can see why this Celtic team have conceded 18 goals in 8 games, which is a ridiculous tally for what is meant to be the team with the best squad in the country.
Yeah, and you mentioned Luke McCowan. He obviously spoke. One quote really stood out to me. He said, he's the manager. We need to do what he's implementing in the game. And in the first half we did. Second half they changed it. We didn't. That's simple as that. Even I don't know if maybe I'm reading into this a bit too much with this quote, but almost to me it's like Luke McCowan saying, well, look, we're only being told what we're being told after the manager, what we have to go and do. Rangers changed it. I don't want to say he's taking a dig at Wilfred Nancy, but do you get what I'm saying in terms of, he's saying they changed it, we kept it the same, and look what happened to us, that kind of.
Yeah, well, I think that's what everyone can see. I think I might have made the point in the podcast chat yesterday before McKeown's comments that that's certainly what I looked at the situation as. I don't think it's a case of. I know a lot of people have pointed to the system, and I think the how attacking Wilfred Nancy sets up his team and maybe some of the personnel he deploys in certain areas is questionable, but ultimately, the Celtic have shown that they're able to play well and dominate matches in that, but just not over a 90-minute period. And ultimately, it doesn't matter how well you play in a game. You can play well for 80 minutes, but if you're losing all the games, it doesn't really matter. It's obviously performances are great, and you like to see a team play well in that, but I think we always say it's a results-driven business, and Wilfred Nancy is getting nowhere near good enough results at the moment. And yeah, Luke McKeown's comments certainly wouldn't convince Celtic fans, I don't think. And but he's not saying anything that he's not revealing anything. I don't think. I think he's just being honest. And yeah, I think you can maybe certainly understand people that believe that the Celtic dressing room don't really buy fully into what Wilfred Nancy's doing. And yeah, I think some of his decision making as well has been a bit questionable. But as I said, I think the Celtic board will probably stick with him because I think they've trapped themselves into a corner. They've already made one new signing on loan, which we've seen Araujo, who didn't really have too much to do. He didn't really have a big impact in the game or whatever. But I think it's key the area that Celtic need to strengthen, and it's the striker position. Ultimately, the problem's been converting the chances they've created, and that's been a problem all season throughout the three managers. And the strikers, I just don't think are really good enough to be starting for Celtic on a regular basis. Any of the three of them, and Kelechi Iheanacho is probably the closest, and his fitness has been obviously really inconsistent. And that's been unfortunate as well for Celtic that a lot of the key players, Jota, Alistair Johnston, and Carter Vickers, to name a few, have obviously been injured this season.
Yeah, and one player that I always find quite interesting after these games, even as a captain. And what do you think Callum McGregor will be feeling about this? This is the first time where I've probably looked at a season and said, I wonder how Callum McGregor's handling this, because let's be honest, for all that Callum McGregor's been in the Celtic team, he's never really experienced this type of season before. How do you think your captain will be feeling?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's I don't know. It's a strange one. I don't know. I don't know how he's feeling, what he thinks of the manager, and because Callum McGregor obviously has a massive sort of hold on that dressing room. Everybody knows that. If he probably doesn't buy into what the manager's doing or doesn't really see eye to eye with the manager, then that'll reflect across the team. But obviously, you don't know. You have to read between the lines. I would say he maybe has, maybe not to this extent, but the COVID season was really poor for Celtic, obviously, and the Celtic fans will obviously just be hoping that he can bounce back again. But I really don't see it. I don't see Celtic being certainly this season. I don't see Celtic being a threat to Hearts or Rangers. I think at the moment a lot of Celtic fans would see it lucky to finish third with how Hibs and Motherwell's seasons are developing and how much confidence they're playing with at the moment.
Aye, and obviously, there's been a couple of rumours going about the day that potentially at 8 o'clock there could be an announcement. Obviously, we don't know. We'll just need to wait and see what happens. But if it was to be sacked tonight, Ethan, is there anybody that you're looking at and you've seen we've sort of gone around that you'd maybe take to go into that management role? I know, obviously, Sean Maloney was at the game watching it next to Paul Tidsdale. I wonder if he's maybe setting up that if, Wilfred does go, he can maybe take the steps back into management.
Yeah, I think quite possibly. I think I heard someone make the point, and I completely agree with it. I think with the way Martin O'Neill left, or was sort of, I don't know, sort of said his goodbyes and was maybe told, right, okay, you done us a great favour and a great job, but we don't need you anymore. I think if he was to return, Martin O'Neill, he would probably want to be backed and be assured that he had a certain amount of time. I'm not talking till the end of the season. I'm talking until the end of next season. Because if it's not going to be the end of this season, if he's going to want to stay longer than the end of this season, it's going to be the end of next season. Because at the end of the day, Martin O'Neill done a really good job. You can say it wasn't convincing and whatever, but ultimately he won the games, which Wilfred Nancy struggled to do, and that's why Danny Rowe has got so much praise at Rangers and deserves it, because he's done what Russell Martin struggled to do on so many occasions with the same playing squad. So I think Sean Maloney is someone who is obviously a young coach on the complete different end of his career compared to Martin O'Neill, who would, I think, probably relish to be in that position as the man. I think people understand that Sean Maloney was probably behind a lot of the tactics when Martin O'Neill was in charge, but to be really the man, the Celtic manager, and to need to have the character and get the players on side and stuff like that would be excellent on his CV. If he can somehow salvage this into being a moderately successful season for Celtic, that would be excellent for his CV going forward. And with the Celtic board, you never know, he might do enough to get the job full time. So yeah, I think he is obviously the standout, because I doubt Celtic are going to try and get another manager from another country in during the season, because obviously we've seen what's happened with Wilfred Nancy, and you can say maybe they got the wrong guy, and it certainly looks like that. But I don't think they'll risk again when they've got someone like Sean Maloney, who's already on the club's books. Will be pretty low maintenance, you could say. Low, won't cost a lot of money. I think he's the obvious candidate, and I can understand why he's the bookies' favourites and why people are maybe assuming that he'll be in to replace the Frenchman if he is dismissed in the coming days before that game against Dundee United.
Yeah, and you mentioned Danny Rowe there for Rangers. It's been an absolutely terrific win. I think it's only the fourth time they've beaten Celtic at Celtic Park in the last maybe 5-6 years. So it's it's a big achievement for Rangers. When you seen the lineup, Ethan, were you surprised that he dropped James Tavernier? I think that was one that caused a bit of debate online whether he should have started or he played Dujon Sterling. And to credit Dujon, a very, very, very good game for him.
Yeah, I thought it did surprise me. I thought James Tavernier would start. I think one of Rangers' biggest threats this season has been set pieces, especially with the introduction of Emmanuel Fernandez. I mean, you look at the guy's stature; he's a beast. Certainly, his height and his build, and you can see why he's scored so many headed goals this season. He wasn't really too effective, I don't think, in the game, but obviously with the set pieces Rangers had, the corners, I think they had a few free kicks as well, which Conor Barron was obviously taking when James Tavernier wasn't on the pitch, but you would think you would maybe get him on for the delivery. And I didn't think, in fairness, I don't think Dujon Sterling had a great first half, but I don't know if any Rangers player really had a good first half. They just were too passive, and yeah, Celtic had them beaten almost every possession, but the second half was a completely different story. They turned the dial of intensity up, and there was a few excellent performances from Rangers players. Yusuf Chermiti, who I thought was really not up to much, you could say, in the first half. I know Rangers were going long to him quite often from Jack Butland. Sometimes he was winning it, sometimes he wasn't, but in the second half, he obviously took his 2 goals really well, especially the first one's an excellent finish for a guy who hasn't scored and who hasn't been scoring on a regular basis. So yeah, and Rangers fans will be hoping, and Danny Rowe obviously will be hoping as well, that that'll give him the confidence to really kick on and be that 8 to 10 million, however much it is, striker. Maybe that ship's already sailed, but I think if he was to score the goals that helps cut the deficit to Hearts in the league and bring Rangers the title, then Rangers fans won't really care. But yeah, there was a few good performances, and the Diamandi switch was, I think, maybe brave because he goes a little bit less man for man. I think that's maybe where Danny Rose went wrong in the first half of the 2 games against Celtic so far. He's been maybe too focused on what the opposition's doing. There was one, for stages of the first half, he actually had Emmanuel Fernandez dropping onto Arne Engels, which was really strange. But obviously with Celtic having 4 midfielders, Celtic have their 2 sort of attacking ones, which were Benjamin Negan and Daizen Maeda on Nico Raskin and Connor Barron, which left Taylor Osgaard doing the job of sort of covering Cal McGregor and Arnie Engels. So he moved Fernandez in. It didn't really work, but then he tried something else, and he did make tactical tweaks throughout the first half to try and nullify it, but then he sort of went, Taylor Osgaard's not really getting in this game. We'll get Mohamed Diamandi, who I think on these days a really good player and really good in these games as well. He's one that I think the Celtic fans don't like to play against. He's that sort of nasty player that'll do things which makes this derby game what it is. And yeah, you've seen that he played with a lot more intensity than Taylor Osgaard did. And I think if I had to pick between the two of them, I would say Mohamed Diamandi is probably a better player. But yeah, Danny Rowe made the switch, and Wilfred Nancy didn't react to it, and that's credit to Danny Rowe. That's why he gets paid his money. And I challenged them, saying he's not won a big game as in the magnitude of a Hearts or a Celtic or a Europa League game that now he has, and now he'll be hoping to really kick on with the backing of a good January transfer window to really end the season in strong fashion. And there's still very much a double on the cards.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to take it away for Rangers. It was three, for their point of view, really well worked goals, especially. I enjoyed Chummety's second one. I know you mentioned the first, but the run through him and the finish, it's not something that Rangers fans probably expected to see after Chumety, to be honest. But the goal I'm interested in, even is the third, Mikey Moore, and that is a goal that will do him a whole bundle of confidence. But I'm actually looking at it for the other side. I mean, how is Kasper Schmeichel not go to that bar in that position? It's a save that, for all that Kasper Schmeichel gets told, that he's really dipped in form this season. He doesn't look like the experienced goalkeeper that's won the Premier League and's played here and there. I get that, but to no save one like that, I mean, that shows me that that's a goalkeeper that probably needs to be dropped.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think it's something we've been discussing on here for weeks now, and yeah, same again from Kasper Schmeichel. It's been what he's doing, what he has been doing recently, and you've seen on the distribution side he wasn't convincing either. I think there was one point in the first half where Celtic had a really good chance. Rangers had sort of pressed up really high, and they had the option to play it into a space where I think there was 3 or 4 Celtic players, and he managed to play it right through the middle of them, and it went to a Rangers player. And obviously the third goal he's got to do better. It's a bog standard save, you would maybe say, because Mikey Moore doesn't get the best connection, but he puts it towards the corner. But I think Kasper Schmeichel gets there, and he'll know he should do better. Even maybe I'm being harsh on the second goal. He obviously gets a bit on it, but I think Chumety does enough, and that was just a comedy of errors from Celtic. The second goal especially, the throw in from Ralston to McGregor, who I think, to be fair to Ralston, Cal McGregor plays a bit of a poor pass back to them, but then Ralston tries to play a pass to Trusty, who's obviously blocked by Chumety, who wins it, and then he drives towards goal. Trusty doesn't know whether to stay with. I think it might have been Mikey Moore that was making the run or go to Chumety, and Chumety ends up composing himself and finishing it well. And I thought all 3 goals from a Celtic point of view were really, really poor, but as you said, from Rangers' point of view, really well. I wouldn't say really well crafted. I thought the game, to be honest, and the whole game was really lacking in quality. I thought it was from an entertainment point of view, it was maybe a good game, but I didn't think there was much quality on show, which probably sums up the two teams this season and why Hearts are at the top of the league. And at the moment, I'd have to say my favourites to take it home.
Yeah, and just finally, on the Rangers goalkeeper Jack Butland, who has also came under a lot of criticism this season, but in some big moments in that game, Ethan, they made a few pretty crucial saves.
Yeah, he certainly did, and I think a few people were maybe saying he should have done better with the Yang goal, but I don't think Yang should even really get into that position. It's an excellent goal from Yang, and I think he was probably, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I thought he was head and shoulders above everyone else on the pitch in the first half. I thought he was excellent. I think he obviously had the most goals in the first half. He also had the most tackles. And I think if there was one player that deserved a moment like that since Wilfred Nancy's come in, it's probably Yang. I think he's adjusted to Wilfred Nancy's style the best, and he's sort of found a new role and maybe a new lease of life at Celtic. I know he's been linked with moves away, and he probably will leave. And knowing how Celtic's recruitment's been recently, they'll sell him and then not buy a replacement. But Yeah, it was an excellent goal from him. Poor defending from Rangers, as I said. I think the defenders have got in the midfielders. I mean, he drives from 30, 35 yards, and it's an excellent finish. He just hits it really hard, and it's difficult. I know it looks like it's straight at Butland or straight above him, but he hits it so hard into the roof of the net that it's a difficult one to save. And he made a few really solid saves, Jack Butland. He didn't let anything spill. There was a lot of Stramashes in the Rangers box. Celtic had a lot of chances. Celtic had a few chances in the second half, and he made some good saves and was really convincing in goals. And that's what you need when you got your rivals and they're putting you under pressure. And ultimately, he was very convincing, unlike Kasper Schmeichel, which is, I'll not say was the difference, because I think Celtic across the outfield players as well just weren't good enough. But Jack Butland was really good, and I think he's made big improvements this season, because he was very poor last season, I would say, by his usual standards and the standards we're used to seeing by him in Scotland anyway, because obviously I think he was nominated for PFA Player of the Year a couple of seasons ago. So back to his best, and maybe in conversation for being the best goalkeeper in the league again.
Yeah, and that result for Rangers moves them level on points with Celtic. Each Rangers, of course, play on Tuesday night against Aberdeen. A game in which, if reports are said to be correct tonight, probably be a big win for Rangers. I'll say that. I think they will win on Tuesday, depending on whether Tilleen's in the job or not, to be honest. Let's move on, and we'll go to Tynecastle, where Hearts picked up a 1-0 win over Livingston to extend their point top of the league to 6 points now. It's another, Ethan, we sort of questioned how Hearts would bounce back for the end of the derby. It's not many times this season where Hearts have been kicked down and taking a loss. They've only had 2-0 in the league, if Aberdeen and Hib. We sort of questioned how would they respond, and it wasn't comfortable scoreline wise, but they got the job done and they got the 3 point.
Yeah, exactly that. They did, and it wasn't anything to write home about. You would say the scoreline 1-0 against bottom of the league. I thought they would probably win in a lot more convincing fashion, but if you look at the stats, I think they completely dominated the game and weren't really under too much trouble by Livingston, and that's what Derek McInnes would have liked to see, and I'm sure he would have had confidence in his players to bounce back. As we said, unlike most of the teams in the league, they had the full week to recover after the Derby Day defeat to Hibs, and that's what the good teams do. They grind out the results after disappointments, and they'll be looking to kick on again. I think they've got a really nice run of fixtures up until they play Celtic again at this time at Tynecastle, and you'd have to say they're big favourites for that one. I can't imagine Celtic, regardless of who's in charge, going to Tynecastle and getting a win. And these are the games that, as long as they can keep ticking with the points and keep winning the games, or picking up more points than Celtic and Rangers and maybe Hibs and Motherwell, if you want to add them into the conversation as well, and then win the games against Celtic and Rangers as they have done, and there's no reason why they can't win this league title. And that's credit to Hearts, because they've been excellent and been the best team this season, and that's why they're sitting top. And then you strengthen the team in January like they have done already. They've got a few new players in, and I believe one of them set up Craig Halkett's goal, so making an instant impact. And you can see how well that recruitment data run strategies worked for them, and why it might make it a historic season, not just for Hearts but for Scottish football as a whole.
Yeah, and I was listening to Jordi Altena after the game, the former KC Wallowit right back, and even I thought he spoke very well, very positive about his time at Tynecastle. He has only played one game, but he said since he's joined the club, he's felt really positive about the direction, and I think that's the perfect way to sum up Hearts right now. The direction that they're going in, so positive. The recruitment seems to have been spot on with every single player that Hearts have signed so far, and it's looking like a squad that don't really look like they're going to slow down anytime soon. Usually after a loss, you'll maybe think, right, maybe the team will take a bit of a form dip, they'll maybe start dropping a couple of points, but Hearts, every time they've done that, have just bounced back equally as good.
Yeah, exactly that, and they're gonna have setbacks throughout the season. It's how they adjust to them, and I think we all wrote them off or certainly I'll say I wrote them off at one point for that little bit of a sticky run they were on where they picked up a couple of draws, and I think after the defeat to Aberdeen, and you thought, oh, is it the same story as last season? But no, they got the win again against Celtic, and from that, as you'd expect, winning against Celtic in their own on their own patch, that they've really kicked on again. Obviously, picked up the win again against Rangers, and yeah, there's no team in the league I think that could beat them, especially at home at the moment. I still think they're the strongest team, and I would really struggle to see Celtic going there and winning. But based off what we've seen a couple of weeks ago against Rangers, I still would struggle to see Rangers going there and winning. I think Hearts were really convincing in all the games they've played against the Glasgow to this season.
Yeah, and Hearts also travel away to Dens Park to play Dundee next Sunday, 2:00. That's live on Sky Sports, and we'll obviously talk about Dundee soon, which I'm sure will be an interesting game. But on Livingston, Ethan, it's another goalless game for David Martindale, another loss. To be honest, probably better than a lot of Livingston fans probably expected to happen. I thought there would have been a couple more goals for the Hearts side, but Livingston, again, just a pretty gutless performance, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Although Livingston are everybody's favourites to go down, or at least alongside Kilmarnock, as we'll get on to, some of the game, they don't lose many games by many goals. They're usually there or thereabouts, and I know that doesn't get you any points, and probably doesn't reflect how good they are in comparison to the rest of the league, because the points tally does that. But yeah, I think Livingston can maybe pick up a few points here and there if they get lucky. But yeah, I've still got them as big favourites to finish bottom of the league. And yeah, I didn't expect them to get anything. I didn't expect them to even lay a glove or get close to Hearts, to be honest, even though Hearts were bouncing back from the Derby disappointment. And yeah, I was surprised when it only finished 1-0, especially when Hearts got the goal after, what was it, 20 odd minutes, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, maybe Livingston could take a little bit of confidence from only losing 1-0 and on paper the toughest fixture in the league, but at the end of the day you don't get points for that, and that's what Livingston need at the minute. Need points and need a win, because it's been a long time since they got one of them, and the Livingston fans are starting to grow restless, and understandably so. I'm sure a few of them made the trip to the shorter trip to Tynecastle, but and credit to them, because it must be difficult going to away to support their team with how it's been and what they probably expect to happen this season. But that's what football's about, and especially this country, we like to pride ourselves as having the best supporters in the world. So yeah, I think it's going to be difficult for Livingston, and I really can't see a way out for them. But you never know. Football is a thing of surprises, and especially this season has been. So I am open to expecting anything this season. Maybe Celtic will get relegated. I don't know.
Yeah, and Livingston have I'd say a big chance to be as unbiased as possible on Tuesday night, as they obviously host at Mum at the home of the Setfair Arena. I think it's called now, Livingston Stadium. A St Mum team that have obviously only scored 1 and 3, 2 losses and a draw. So, if David Martindale is going to pick up wins, it's most likely going to be in that game, and even a draw. And then I think if I'm led to believe they've got 3 home games in a row, a double header against St Mum, 1 in the cup, and then Kilmarnock. So, if you're looking at that, you're probably fancying David Martindale to get some amount of points out of the next 3 games, and even a cup win.
Yeah, if Livingston and Kilmarnock were to play at the minute, I think I would maybe back Livingston. And I know that's crazy to say, but Kilmarnock are, as we'll get on to, I'm sure, are really in free fall at the moment, and they seem like they can't get anything. They're not even getting really close to their opposition. I know they lost to Dundee by the odd goal the other night, but yeah, I think there's definitely still going to be opportunities for Livingston. You even talk about St Mirren, they've obviously, as we'll get on to, been struggling for goals, and Livingston will want to make it difficult for them. And what they've not done this season, Livingston has made their home ground really a fortress, like it usually is in the Scottish Premiership or just in general. And I know it's difficult for them with the financial difference, as we've spoke on it 100 times, and David Martindale has as well. They didn't really do that last time they were in the Premiership, but that's what made Livingston successful when they were in it previously. And I know they've got a new pitch as well, but they need to start making the set fair arena, is it?
I think so. I'm going to
I'm not
actually just
sure. I just call it.
It's the home of the set fair arena, but it's the Tony Macaroni, really.
Yeah, it's Tony Macaroni. That's what we all know it from. Obviously, officially not, because the set fair are paying for the sponsor. But yeah, the Livingston Stadium, they need to make that a fortress and start really making it a place teams fear to go. I mean, you look, even Wilfred Nancy's Celtic went there and won pretty convincingly. And then I know there was a little bit of a scare at the start, but that's a ground that the great Celtic teams under Brendan Rodgers and Ange Postecoglou feared going in the past. So yeah, I think I don't really feel high on Livingston at the minute, but you never know.
Aye, and we'll move over to Tannadice, where yet again another, I think you'd say, shocker in the Dundee derby. Presley just keeps surprising everybody. Even it was a 1-0 Dundee win for Hay, getting the only goal in the game, Ashley Hay. A game in which I didn't see much of it, to be honest, but I think what you'd say is that is an incredible win for Dundee, and which is the third win in a row. And the travel, obviously, they play Hearts at home. That they'll be feeling really confident ahead of that game.
Yeah, exactly. Of course they will be, and despite Hearts coming to Dens and being favourites, I think Dundee will be really confident with the run they've been on. And that's I don't think I think I might have said this previously, but I don't think there's a lot between a lot of the teams in the league this season. And confidence will be a massive thing. Belief in each other and what your manager's trying to tell you to do as well is a massive thing. And if Dundee have got that, which they seem to do with the run they're on, then they'll be a difficult team to stop, regardless of who they're playing against, especially at home, because that's where they've had most of their success. That was their first away win of the season, I think, in their 11th away game. I might be wrong on that, but I would assume means they've played every team away. And what a team to pick to get your first away win at your rivals across the road. Near enough a home game, mind you, with the geographicals of it, or the geography of it rather. But yeah, a massive win, and Dundee deserved it. They were excellent in the first half, and they missed some big chances before they got the goal. Hay took it really well when it came, and it was poor defending from United. I think it was Kamara who sort of flicked it on and gave Esselink a really hard time with the foot race with Hay, who we know is quite quick. So yeah, good finish from him, and Dundee will be carrying a lot of confidence. And now they're only 3 points behind United, which felt crazy to say a few weeks ago, but that's what happens when you pick up 9 points from 9, isn't it?
Aye, and it is a sensational run of form. Obviously, I believe McCracken get man of the match, and that was by another goalkeeper even that's been criticised, earlier in the season. And obviously, I remember I had that time where he was getting touted for the Scotland team. Obviously, I think he go into the team at one point. But that's another clean sheet for him. And there's not been many this season for Dundee, but that's another positive building. That's a clean sheet against your rivals, the Dundee United team that have been in a mixed bag of form as of recent. It'll be obviously a big blow to Jim Goodwin, but you can't take anything away for Dundee in times like this. It's a fantastic derby win again. Presley just proving people wrong.
Yeah, he keeps doing that, and I think I've said it a few times. That I was saying at the start of the season, I'll give myself credit that he's not got a great squad there, and he was keeping Dundee in the fight. But now they're really sort of going, well, why can't we go for top 6 here? Why can't we try and finish above our rivals, which was maybe unthinkable to a lot of people at the start of the season, including myself. And credit to Stephen Presley. You seen when the goal goes in, he just looks around Tannadice and goes, "Yeah, this is what I want to be doing." And credit to him, because I think he's done really well with the players they've got there. And I haven't spoke to many Dundee fans recently, but I'm sure they're loving what their manager's doing and that group of players are doing. And maybe they can have an even better season than last campaign, which seems unthinkable when you take away the goals from Simon Murray, and imagine where they could be if they get him fit and firing again. But I think with how Ashley Hay. I know he hasn't scored the most goals, but he's certainly been a live wire and scoring a derby. It'd be difficult to take him out. I think he's a player with a lot of confidence as well. I remember him saying that, I think it was something along the lines of he was running the Celtic defenders ragged at Celtic Park. I think he said something like that. So he's a guy that plays with a lot of confidence, and you've seen him. He took out a little half volley on the spin that went just over the bar, and his teammates were screaming at him to pass it, and he just took it on. And you've seen he had ice in his veins, as they say, when he was 1-on-1 with Richards, who was left helpless. And Dundee United will be a bitter pill to swallow, losing to their rivals, especially at home. And I think I was looking at it in the last 10 league meetings between the two Dundee clubs. Only one has been won by the home team, which is quite strange. So yeah, maybe a way advantage for these teams. And I think there was 3,500 Dundee fans that had made the big trip. Credit to them to celebrate that win.
That must be, I might be wrong, that must be the closest derby game in the UK, like one of the closest grounds between teams. I don't imagine there's much closer than the Dundee.
I think it is the closest in the UK. Yeah. I think there's closer, wider across Europe maybe, but no, I think it is the closest in the UK, and it's really interesting that they're literally on the same street. But yeah, it makes a funny dynamic, and I'm sure it's one the Dundee fans enjoy. I think you always hear the stories about the pubs that they go to before and after the games and stuff like that. And it's something that contributes to Scottish football and the lore, if you want to use that word behind it.
Aye, and I think even though they are so close, it still feels like a proper rivalry. And I was quite happy for Presley. Listening to him after the game, I thought his words were really, really good. He spoke positively. I said, this is why I want to get out of bed in the morning. This is why I want to come and do the job. For all the criticism you can fling at him, Presley, and for what he said before and all that sort of stuff, the guy cares. You can never take that away from him. He cares about the club that he manages. He cares about Dundee, clearly. He cares about every single one of their players, and it's rejuvenating his passion for the game, and I think you can see that on the touchline.
Yeah, exactly that. And he was someone that was laughed at by Scottish football at the start of the season, and now he's maybe, I know it's very early in the season, we're only halfway through, and it still could obviously go very wrong for Dundee, but I can't see it happening. He would have backed himself coming into the job, that he knew his skills, as all coaches do. You can back your skills and it not work out, but obviously has for him, and it's only right he relishes in that's not really the right word, is it? He revels, sorry, that's the right word I was looking for, in the success Dundee have had so far this season. And I know they've not turned any trees up or anything like that, but I think for what everyone expected of Dundee, including the Dundee fans, they're doing a lot better than that, and that's all you can really do as a football team. It's punch above your weight and go above the expectations of the supporters is always excellent, and brings I think happiness to the fans unlike any other.
Yeah, and it is now official. Aberdeen FC have released a statement on Jimmy Tilleen confirming that he has had his contract terminated. I don't really think, Ethan, that's a surprise. In the statement, it says Jimmy will depart the club alongside his assistant, Krista Pearson. First team coach Peter Levine will take temporarily charge of first team affairs, supported by Craig Hinchcliffe and sporting director. I'm not even going to try and say the sporting director's name, to be honest. You can have a look at the article.
Well, that is very interesting, and I think a few people will pick up on that, certainly, that Peter Levine, who was linked with the Kilmarnock job and apparently pulled out or didn't want to really go to advanced stages, is now the Aberdeen interim coach, as he obviously was before. So maybe he knew that was coming, or suspected that was coming, suspected that his peer was going to get the boot and he was going to get the chance to be the Aberdeen manager again. I'm not saying that's completely the case, of course not, but reading between the lines, it certainly looks that way.
Aye, and just to sort of add some more, Jimmy Taline has spoke after the starting, which you don't often find with managers. Managers don't often say as much as Taline has said here, and I'm not obviously going to read it all. You can go and get the article and read between every line if you want. But the best to say it is, he said, today my time as manager at Aberdeen comes to an end. It is with great respect for this historic club that I accept this decision. I believe results ultimately decide the tenure of this profession, and as such, I take my share of responsibility. So he knows it's not been good enough even in the last few weeks, and I think that is how you sum that up. And aye, it's confirmed now. As you said, time Peter Levine will take the reins, and Jimmy Talina is gone.
Yeah, and as Michael joins us, I think throughout his spell, through successful times, as he's had very successful times with that remarkable league run at the start of last season, and of course, none more so than the Scottish Cup triumph, and then even the lows of the terrible run last season. I would say it's worse. The start of this season was really poor, and then obviously it sort of went back to a difficult spell. I think Jimmy Tillene's someone who's been quite honest as a manager, and more honest than a lot of them probably are, and that's why I think he's able to accept the fact that it wasn't good enough, and able to write on the statement. And I'm sure the Aberdeen fans, I'll be able to look back and not have frustration towards Jimmy Tillene, but accept what he done, congratulate what he done, be grateful for what he done for the football club, but ultimately understand, like the Swedish manager does, that it wasn't working out anymore, and there had to be a change, and ultimately that's what Dave Cormack and the rest of the Aberdeen hierarchy have chose to do.
Yeah, and Michael, when coming to the show, obviously you told us earlier in the group chat about Jimmy Tillene. Obviously it's been officially announced. I mean, the Scottish Cup 2025 will be one that Aberdeen fans will never ever forget, and I'm sure even though they'll be honest that results haven't been good enough, that is a moment that Jimmy Tillene will always be remembered for by Aberdeen.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, he got off to a good start in the league, didn't he? And then obviously Celtic beat them in the League Cup semi-final, and it went downhill since there. Aberdeen won the Scottish Cup. But I think I said at the time, Robbie, on the show when Jimmy Tillene was appointed, that if this doesn't work out, Dave Cormack should have a look at himself as well, because he's basically appointed 3 managers now, and okay, you could maybe say one of them was semi-successful in terms of getting them into Europe, winning a Scottish Cup, but apart from that, they were kind of like failures.
Yeah,
Ethan, would you say that's probably a fair way to describe the situation?
Yeah, I think it is. Obviously, he'll go down as a very successful manager for winning the Scottish Cup, but in the long-term progression of Aberdeen as a football club, if they're wanting to do something like Hearts are doing right now, for example, and bridge the gap between Rangers and Celtic, and really stake their claim as at least the third best team in Scotland, is I would agree that the third biggest club, but I think we had this discussion that maybe not on recent performances, then they need a long-term project, and that's what it's not been. And I'd agree with Michael. I think they need to get the next one right and really start the project and make it a successful, long-lasting one this time.
Yeah, and Michael, obviously Peter Levine, as we mentioned, will take the reins right now for Aberdeen's. Well, it will be in the dugout for Tuesday night as Aberdeen travel to Ibrox, but unsure if he'll be in the dugout for the return fixture at Pittodrie. But Ethan's right, it is a time now to really get a long-term manager in that's, a long-term solution that's going to build the club positively only. It's been so many seasons of disappointment after disappointment, and now you feel, as you mentioned, Dave Cormack's got to get it right.
I know that it's a big risk getting Craig Levine out of the freezer again, up to a freezing cold Aberdeen. But in terms of I don't think they get a choice really, because obviously they've got a big game in Tuesday night going to Ibrox, and Rangers would be licking their lips after Saturday's win over Celtic. But I feel though that because it did kind of like work out for Levine at St Johnson. I don't know about you, and I don't know about Paul Watson in the chat, but I feel as though it's a bit of a left field appointment.
Well, no, it's no Craig Levine, by the way. It's Peter Levine, who I believe was still in connection with the club. I think.
Yeah, I think he was. I think he was assistant. Was it? Was
Yeah.
assistant?
Right, for the guys, yeah.
No. So he just takes in Rennes, but probably the smarter point. I know you mentioned earlier was briefly linked with the Kilmarnock job. So I'm going to assume he's. Even I think your theory's right. I think he probably has found out about Tilleen potentially getting sacked and went, "I'll just stay here, take charge." You know, I don't exactly know if we'll get the job first time.
Yeah, well, I think to be honest, I think with the way Jimmy Tilleen's been part of the sort of farewell statement, you could call it. I know he's been dismissed and probably against his best wishes or whatever, but they've been able to come to agreement. Then I think Jimmy Tilleen was probably in the know. I think Peter Levine was probably in the know. I think Aberdeen and everyone sort of had the collective idea that if things didn't get better by a certain period in the recent future, then Jimmy Tilleen was going to be sort of dismissed. And then maybe Aberdeen said, well, Peter Levine, if you could stay around for a bit and take the reins until we find a new manager, then I think that's probably how it's went. I'm not really, now that Jimmy Tilleen's part of the statement, I can probably understand that's the way it's went, rather than Peter Levine up to any shifty business behind his manager.
Michael, just to ask you, before we sort of move on to speak about the rest of the games, we sort of touched on some positive news for Scottish football for once at the start of the show. Hamilton have been officially saved by the Morley Sports Management Group, who bought out 97.5% of the club. A bit of positive news in Scottish football for once.
Yeah, no, so the guys that I've got my ravines mixed up with cold outside, so my brain might be affected by that. People might say, what brain? But anyway, we'll move on from that. Yeah, a bit of positive news to start the new year for Hamilton Accies as well, because, I mean, look, they were suffering for ages during the year with Jess Glenn and Jock Brown at the helm as well, and it didn't kind of like work out. So hopefully that they'll be rebuilding back up the way.
Aye, certainly. And as obviously you mentioned earlier, it's been Hamilton a historically tough team to beat. They picked up some really big results actually in the Premiership. Of course, their way when Ibrox springs to mind instantly. So you never want to see a club go through that trouble, but. Sort of back to the league stuff. We will go, obviously, I know we were talking about sort of Kilmarnock earlier. We'll go to Rugby Park, and at West Kilmarnock 1-3, another big 3 points for David Gray. And I think everything that I said on the show, I'm probably eating me a humble pie, because I was on the show a couple of weeks ago questioning David Gray's mentality and if he could really kick on. But this Hibs team, they looked pretty unbeatable. It was a really good start for Ellie Ewan, and I know Kelly got the equaliser, but they found that spirit to go and win the game. Ewan again, then McGrath with a penalty. McGrath set up both goals up really, really, really well, and it's another 3 points for Hibs.
Yeah, and they are becoming a force to reckon with in the league. Themselves and Motherwell have created a gap to the last position in sixth, which is now obviously occupied by Falkirk, previously occupied by Dundee United and Aberdeen recently. And I think they're going to be they look, obviously we've still got a long way to go, but they look like the teams that are going to join Celtic, Rangers and Hearts as favourites for the European positions. And the question is going to be, can they challenge Rangers and probably more specifically Celtic for the top 3 places at the minute, because they're on excellent runs. Motherwell have obviously shown that they can beat Celtic as they did the other night. Hibs obviously I think got a point against Celtic this season, but haven't beaten them, but have been pretty close in the games they've played against Celtic under different managers. So Yeah, I think it's a really good win for David Gray's team, and it keeps on the run they're on, which is a really good one. Wins over Hearts and Aberdeen don't come easily, and then I know it may seem like, oh, they beat Kilmarnock, everybody's done that, but you don't, as I always say, you don't want to be the team that lets up and is the team that loses to Kilmarnock, so to say. So yeah, the pressure was on Hibs, and they got the job done, and they'll be confident that they can kick on and close that gap to Motherwell and Celtic, because I'd have to say Celtic look, I don't know, maybe by far is an exaggeration, but the weakest of those 5 teams that I mentioned at the moment.
Aye, and Michael Chris Doolan, another loss. You don't imagine now I don't think he'll be getting the job permanently. I think they'll probably try and look for somebody. I know Robbie Nielsen's been heavily linked. It's another loss. It's a David Watson red card. How quickly do you think Kilmarnock will try and get a manager in? Because I know I believe they don't play until Saturday again. So do you think they'll maybe get somebody in before that game?
Yeah, like, so they've got a full week as well, Robbie as well. I mean, I was quite pleased about Chris Doolan being kind of like appointed interim manager, because I thought he was doing a decent job for Hill as well. But I think, like, if you don't get a permanent manager in, it might upset the team, kind of thing. So that's why they're getting so many disappointing results over the past couple of weeks. And I mean, that was a good score for Hibs. I mean, good score for Hibs, bad score for Kilmarnock, because away from home in a plastic park. It just shows you how good a job David Gray is looking. And maybe I don't want to upset the Hibs fans, but I mean, maybe there'll be a few other teams sniffing about him and the Motherwell manager, because they're doing brilliant jobs. But in terms of Kilmarnock, yeah, I mean, I think the sooner the better they appoint a manager, the better, or else they'll be in deep bother come the end of the season.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Michael. I think maybe Kilmarnock, I know it's difficult to get a manager in during the season. We've seen already the sort of struggles that Rangers went through, the struggles Celtic are going through at the minute as a result of probably, which it looks like, hiring the wrong guy. So yeah, the Kilmarnock need to get it right, because their Premiership fate is looking like it's on the line here. But I think they've waited long enough. I think they need someone in, need an injection of something, of new life to I don't know, get the players. I don't know what you could say. Give them a sort of added confidence, because that's what they need at the minute. The confidence must be on the absolute floor with the run they're on. I think it's 13 without a win and a lot of defeats in that. So yeah, they need someone in, and I think it is. I would say it's probably going to be Robbie Nielsen. I think Neil McCann was the other one alongside Peter Levine that was floated, but I think Robbie Nielsen's the fans' number one choice from those candidates, and I think he'll be the one that ultimately Kilmarnock go with.
The smart choice as well. If you're Kilmarnock, I think Robbie Nielsen's a pretty decent coach, and I think if you're going to look for anybody to get you out of this hole, I think it would be him. But just before I go, I didn't head off in a minute, but I will just obviously speak about Fir Park since I watched the game. I'm not going to go on a whole rant about losing and all the rest of it. I could spend all night talking about it, but what I will say is Tuesday night becomes very quickly a must-win. And Ethan was speaking about the pressure that Hibs having to beat Kilmarnock, not being the team that loses to Kilmarnock. Well, we need to be the team that doesn't lose to Livingston away on Tuesday. And as such a torrid time for us right now, Motherwell could have been that easily 5 or 6 up. And counting, I mean, some of their players are so nice to watch. Elijah Just, again, getting an assist. Tawanda Maspinacio also being back for AFCON. He get to go well at Watt, getting a absolutely amazing goal, by the way. The whole team at Motherwell looks so connected right now, as Michael mentioned. Jens is slowly becoming one of the best managers in the league, because that Motherwell team genuinely look unstoppable right now. They don't look like they can be beaten. I'm not too sure who it is. The face off against next week is actually Hibs away, which will be a pretty interesting game. But just on our side, we need a win. We need a win on Tuesday night, and if we don't, then Mike will be on the show at 10 o'clock, probably ranting me, to be honest with you, because that'll be a pretty bad result if we don't win the game. but I'm not going to let you guys go. And as I said, I'll see you guys on Tuesday for what will be a pretty nervous show by my standards when the team sheet comes up. But I'll speak to you guys later.
See you later, Robbie.
Yeah, see you, Robbie.
So, how do I don't know how to leave when I'm host.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so basically, I was a late sub call up to the show. Ethan, came on the show. I saw your chat about the Celtic and Rangers game at the top of the show. You were there yesterday. I was there yesterday. Where do you start? I mean, I thought it was a game of two halves as well, but probably not. Nancy said the Celtic team at half time. I didn't inspire them to come out in the second half. I mean, I can go on a bit of a rant about Celtic, and I'm sure you can as well. But I mean, look, let's just say for me, I don't know what you said, Ethan, because I kind of missed because I was coming back in the car and stuff like that. But I mean, like, it's not as if Celtics became a bad team overnight. Like, let's just get that out of the way first. I think it's more to do with the formation.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not on the. I think I agree with you. I don't think Celtic have become a bad team overnight, but I don't think it's strictly to do with the formation. I think maybe the personnel and where Wilfred Nancy's playing them and the areas they expect these players to be. I don't know if anybody's seen the positions of the Celtic players for the second goal, which obviously came from a Celtic throw-in. But I think it was something like Austin Trusty was the only Celtic player in the Celtic half for a Celtic throw-in that was in their own half, or it was near to being in Celtic's half anyway. And obviously, Anthony Ralston and Callum McGregor between them make the error, and then it's just Austin Trusty back. Kieran Tierney manages to recover slightly, but Austin Trusty doesn't know that he's covered the run of Mikey Moore, I think it was, and allows Chimiti to bear down on goal and get the goal, which ultimately wins Rangers the match at that point. But yeah, I think Nancy's just showed that he's incapable of, I don't know what you would say, adapting to what the opposition manager's doing. Danny Rowe makes a sub at half time. Rangers tried to press the game a lot more than they did in the first half. They were passive in the first half, Rangers. In the second half, they got after Celtic and got their rewards. But yeah, it's just no matter how well Celtic play in portions of the games, as I said earlier, they need to get results, and it's a results-driven business. And Wilfred Nancy's not getting the results, and that's why the majority of Celtic fans want him gone, and they believe he's not the right man for the job. But as I said, I think the Celtic board have kind of trapped themselves in a corner with the time of the appointment. And yeah, I think it's just a really difficult one, and I think it all goes back to Celtic in the summer and how bad the recruitment's been for the players, and now probably for the managerial staff.
I mean, just to play devil's advocate for a minute, Ethan, right? So, if Celtic had a real strike in, no offense to Johnny Kenny, but I mean, if Johnny Kenny took his chances, you might be talking about him scoring 2 hat-tricks a game since the Hearts game. But I mean, do you think that if Celtic had a kind of number 9 up front, then the supporters would be off Nancy's back a wee bit, or do you think it'll be the same?
Well, I think they might have picked up better results because they've created a lot of chances and not taking them. But I think they need a striker, and I think it's baffling that they've not got a striker in yet. They brought a right back in, but I don't think. I know people say about Anthony Ralston and not being Celtic quality, and this has been something that Anthony Ralston's been sort of thrown at him his whole Celtic career. But he is the second choice right back. He's having to do a job in a position that he's never played in his life. But at the end of the day, in the first half, the problem wasn't Anthony Ralston. The problem was Celtic couldn't find the back of the net on more than one occasion, and they should have done. and even in the second half, they had a few chances as well. And I would agree with you. I don't know if Johnny Kenny's quite up to Celtic standard. Certainly, maybe up to Celtic standard. It's contributing here and there, but not as the man they turn to when they need a goal in a derby match. And yeah, I think maybe if they had a striker who was able to score, I don't know, 20, 30 goals a season, then they might have scored more goals. But at the end of the day, they've conceded 18 goals in 8 games, which is over 2 a match. So I don't think bringing in a striker is going to change that fact. And that's ultimately the one that's costing Celtic the most, is conceding goals, because you can't win football matches if you're conceding over 2 goals a game. Well, you can, but you make it obviously very difficult for yourself.
I mean, it's baffling that statistic, the 18 goals, but in terms of, like, I know it's not in the consolation, but the first half was the only half that Nancy's had since it's joined Celtic that they've not conceded a goal. But like, I know you were at the game, but like, how frustrated were you when they made was it a triple sub in the 78th minute? And like, I know the game was already away at that point, but I mean, surely, like, if you got a quick goal, then, you know, and I know a lot of fans wouldn't be happy with a point, but a point's better than a defeat. But I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, when they make the subs at the wrong time in the game.
Yeah, I think possibly that. I think he waited too long to start making subs. I think everybody could see what was happening. Rangers were growing confident and they were getting after Celtic, unlike they were in the first half, and Celtic had no answers to it. And I think he should have made subs earlier. But I think some people were complaining about the personnel that were coming onto the pitch. But if you looked at the bench, there wasn't a lot of options there for Wilfred Nancy that he can turn to and go, okay, he's going to come on and change the game. I think your only 2 players beyond a midfielder were James Forrest and Shin Yamada. So yeah, that goes back to the recruitment. And I think Celtic has just been a case of failures of the football club and every operation and every level throughout the season, and that's why they find themselves. I know they're second at the minute, but I think they'll be third and maybe fourth and fifth very soon if they continue on this trajectory. And I don't see it changing anytime soon. I've seen they're linked with a winger from the Israeli league, but I don't think Celtic could bring in anyone in January that could change it. I think it's going to be really difficult for whoever's in charge and whatever players are fit and available, and that's obviously been a struggle for Celtic as well so far this season.
Yeah, no, I think as well that I'm not sure where Celtic goes from here, like, because I know you and a lot of Celtic fans were hoping that we get the sack kind of like after the game, you know. But I mean, as time goes on, and
to be honest, Michael, I don't even know if I was. I don't even know what I hope for at this stage. I don't know. I think it's clear that Wilfred Nancy's not the right guy, but I'm not sure if there's anyone that could come in. I know Martin O'Neill had a really solid spell, but I don't know. I think the ship might have sailed, and I don't know if there's anyone that could come in and steady the ship again, to use the same sort of turn of phrase. So yeah, I think Wilfred Nancy probably does need to be dismissed, but at the end of the day, I don't know what Celtic can do. I think they've just mismanaged the football club from top to bottom, as I said, and I think they've done it to such great effect, or that I think it's unrecoverable this season. I really do, and I think Rangers is one problem, but you've obviously got to think about Hearts, who, as I said earlier, I still feel are favourites for the league title, because they've shown on the occasions they've played, both Celtic and Rangers, that they've got too much for the Glasgow clubs, and nothing that I seen yesterday has changed my opinion on that.
I know that Rangers fans will be saying, well, we deserve to win the game, and they score goals, and you could argue in both points, even, but like, in terms of like Celtic, I'm not just talking about this season, by the way. I'm talking about maybe about for the past maybe about 2 or 3 seasons, maybe Andrew Postecoglou as well. You know, teams doesn't have to work hard for the goals. Even like Celtic just gives them away. You know.
No, certainly not. And I think I said that, and I'm not trying to take anything away. I gave Danny Rowley's credit, and he deserves a lot of it because he made the change. And as I said, no matter how bad Celtic were and how many individual errors there was leading to goals and whatever, he made the change, and ultimately it won Rangers the game, and that's all that matters. We've seen that Danny Rowley hasn't. I don't think he's really got the chance to build his team and his real style of what he wants to do at Rangers Football Club. He's having to make do with makeshift players that aren't really, I don't think, here for the long term. Rangers have obviously got a lot of loans as well, but he done the job for Rangers, and that's what Wilfred Nancy's continued to not do. That's what Russell Martin didn't do. That's why both those managers will be probably forever remembered in the same vein. Of course, but going with the fact that they weren't part of the same seasons for each, and very disappointing periods within the seasons for the clubs. And but all three of the goals really preventable from a Celtic point of view. The first goal, they give the ball away and they let off the hook. I think it was Duzer Sterling who delivered a really, really poor cross into the box. And then it gets recycled. Celtic just don't defend. Numerous players fail to tackle. I think it was Raskin who crossed it, and then Chermiti's good movement and a good finish from him. The second goal, obviously, they give the ball up, and also Trusty should probably go towards Chermiti. And then the third goal, again, they're just not winning the second balls. Completely different to the first half, and Rangers took their chances. I think Celtic had 20 odd shots, 9 on target. Rangers had around 10 and 4 on target, so 4 shots on target, 3 goals, and that's the difference at the minute. I think Chermiti's maybe been the laughing stock for Scottish football fans, but he took his 2 chances when they came, and that was the difference in the game. And as you said, it was a game of 2 halves. There wasn't much in the game, but Rangers took their chances, and Jack Butland turned up. Celtic didn't take their chances, and Kasper Schmeichel probably should do better, at least for one of the goals.
Before we finish up, Ethan, Rangers has got a big game on Wednesday night. I keep saying Wednesday night. It's Tuesday night against Aberdeen at Ibrox. They'll be licking their lips because obviously Aberdeen just sacked the manager when they came on. You were talking about Jimmy Turdine. Rangers off of a back, a good win up at Circuit Park yesterday. They'll be going into the game confident, but also as well that the more times Rangers win games, all right, Rangers aren't playing well. Most Rangers fans would admit that, but if you win more games, it breeds confidence. But in terms of like Celtic as well, the more times they lose games, that the heads will go down. And I mean, in a couple of weeks, they've got Auchinleck Talbot as well. That's going to be a big banana skin now. I compare that to Darvo and Aberdeen a few seasons ago. But I mean, Rangers, come back to Rangers, I mean, they'll be quietly confident, and I think it will be the first time that they go above Celtic in the table. Am I right, on Tuesday night?
Yeah, it will be.
Yep. So that'll be quite interesting on that game. Rangers at Aberdeen and Livingston against Midland, and also we've got a handful of championship games on Tuesday night. We'll be on Tuesday night for the build-up of the games, and then we'll be on after the games as well. Ethan, thanks for joining me. Not for joining me. I've made a cameo appearance off the bench. I was a Wilfred Nancy sub, but we still get beat in the game. So thanks for joining, and thanks to Robbie as well. And we'll be back on Tuesday. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Scottish Football Zone YouTube channel, Spotify, TikTok, and everything else. And we'll talk to you again on Tuesday at what time will we be on? We'll be on at 7:15 on Tuesday, so join us live for that. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, and if you're going back to work, it's a hard slog going back to work tomorrow after 2 weeks. I'll see you soon and enjoy the nice weather that we're having outside.
You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.